Excellent, excellent. Just to finish off, then, how do you anticipate tokenization and blockchain interoperability changing the face then of financial institutions and financial services then over the next 5 years or so?
I think we're going to arrive at a world where every bank actually has multiple blockchains, probably different chains for different specific categories of assets or different markets. So every bank will have multiple chains, just like they have multiple databases. Those chains will then need to be connected to the multiple chains of other banks that represent their relevant markets and regions and various asset types. And this is going to be driven by the efficiency with which you can make a chain. So historically, it's been very hard to make a chain. It's been a complicated process to launch one and make it secure. But that process is becoming more and more easy to use, easy to implement. And so I think there'll be this huge amount of new chains coming out, multiple chains for each bank. So there'll be a lot of fragmentation. And then, and even now, the problem will be and is, how do you connect all those chains into a single network of communication and a single network of value moving across those different chains so that all the different contracts and all those different chains can transact with each other. And the fundamental problem there from the banking point of view is going to be liquidity and the access to markets and the ability to take your assets and make them available to others so they can purchase your assets or for you to purchase their assets. So this is the thing that we're solving with CCIP. It's the ability for all of these different bank chains to become connected with each other and transact with each other reliably. And that's a critical building block. And then the final thing is, I think the assets that they make on these chains that get moved around through CCIP are going to have very large amounts of data injected into them to make them good golden records or good single sources of truth that prove a lot of things about the asset in ways that manage the risk of that asset much better than the existing methods. So the existing methods, you can have some asset, and you need a lot of money to have that asset because fractional ownership doesn't really exist in many cases. So now you'll have fractional ownership. That fractional ownership will be very easy to transact for many different chains, for many different banks, and that'll be much quicker than today's systems and much more cost efficient and much better in many ways. And then the asset that you have this fractional piece of will have a lot of information attached to it. So you'll know everything about the asset, what the status of the asset is, what the value of the asset is, if there's anything significant that's changed about the asset, and you won't have to rely on your research or the bank to tell you or some credit agency to tell you. All that information will kind of be input into the asset, possibly by the credit agency and the bank and data providers. But so you'll have more assets that are easier to own, easier to move, easier to transact, and the risk will also be lower. So that, I think, will benefit globalization, the ability for everyone to transact globally about these assets. And I think it'll also greatly reduce systemic financial risk because all that information in those assets will allow people to make well-informed, accurate decisions about assets that are less risky rather than more risky.